Welcome back, I'm so glad to see you again, and today I thought we'll do a sunset mountain scene. It's probably one of my most favorite paintings. It's very challenging because we have a lot of things to do, and let's go up here. I'll tell you what I have already done. I have a 18 by 24 inch double primed stretch canvas and have already covered the surface with a thin even coat of liquid white, and we're ready to start. And I want to start with the twinge brush and the least little amount of cadmium yellow. Very little paint though. And we come up here and using crisscross strokes like this time I want a little bit of yellowish glow in the sky. And we're using very little paint. I want to reflect this down here. Not gonna pay much attention to this because we're gonna cover most of the bottom of the painting. So I will take the same brush and go into some Indian yellow. Very little paint. Tap this firmly. And let's go above this, and using the same strokes when reaching the glow in the sky. Very little paint, and using just the same brush once again I'm taking some yellow ochre. Very little paint, a nice golden color. And I will go just above this and very little paint. And we blend this with crisscross strokes because it is easier to blend. And you can blend as much as you want until it disappears. The liquid white will eat it up. Now above that I'm gonna take the least little amount of bright red. Least little amount. And we're gonna use this red as a separator between the yellows and the other color I'm gonna put above this one. A very soft sky today. And as you can see, it still has some of the yellows that we have left on the brush. So it's actually a kind of orangey color going on here. It's very nice. Let's brush this out. Now I'm gonna go into some alizarin crimson. And I'm also gonna add just a touch of phthalo blue, because I want a kind of purplish color, a lavender color, a little bit more blue for me. And it's up to you to decide what kind of value you want, and we just brush mix. Okay, so I'll go up in here right now. I'm gonna use a wider stroke for this one. I ran out of canvas already. And just down here I'm gonna fill this in. This is a very nice way of cleaning your brush. It's easier to clean in the thinner. So we have actually mirrored the sky to the water. Okay. I'm gonna leave this down. I'm gonna take a clean dry twinge brush and I'm gonna bring all this together. So I will start in here. And we just bring all this together. And very gently go across. And we do the same thing in here. Bring all this together. Now what I want to do is that I'm gonna take a clean 2-inch brush, make sure it's dry, and I'm gonna take the least little amount of titanium white. I want this white, I want to bring a glow from the sun towards my painting. The sun is somewhere in the right, so I will take this white paint, a little bit more paint, and I will come from here, a little bit more color. I want to bring some sunshine inside, and I'm gonna work towards the left. As you can see already, we have a nice glow coming in here. And we blend all this very, very gently. Okay. Now I want to take a fan brush. Let me find a nice fan brush. And I'm gonna use a number 3 fan brush. I'm gonna go into some alizarin crimson and some phthalo blue. I'm gonna add the least little amount of white to this, a little bit more. I want to have some nice streaky clouds in here. And I'm using some paint on the brush, a little bit more blue for me. Now these are the easiest clouds to make, so just decide where you want your clouds to be and just go like this. It's so easy. We just graze the canvas with our fan brush. It's so easy to do, so easy to blend, just here and there. And the closer we get to the light source, the lighter they're gonna be. They're gonna be highlighted later on. A little bit more paint in here. So in order to blend this, I'm gonna take a 2-inch brush and just gonna blend all these. They're that easy to blend, that easy to make. And we have the liquid white underneath that helps us blend these easier. Very nicely, very softly. And I do not use the brush this way because it's gonna smear and gonna destroy the whole sky. Okay. A little bit more distinct up here. So I'm gonna take the same color. Blend this a little bit. Now I just would need to highlight them. I'm gonna wash this brush. And we wash our brushes with odorless paint thinner. This is the best choice for oil paints. We're using oil paints, of course. Just make sure you're in a safe environment. So I'm gonna take the same brush and I'll take a little bit of white in here and a little touch of cadmium yellow. There's some sunshine on these clouds. So I'm gonna highlight the ones closest to the light source. I will go in here, a little bit more white. And we load the brush as necessary. Those in here are not very distinct. And the further away we go from the light source, the less distinct the highlights will be. We're running out of paint, and you can see not lots of highlights going on here. Take the big brush, make sure it's dry and clean, and just blend this nicely. And that easily we have a nice sunset sky going on here. Okay. Now I want to paint a couple of mountains. I want to paint a mountain further back in here that's not very distinct, so I'm gonna take just some light lavender color, and as you can see there is not a lot of paint going on in here. Pull this out very flat, get a little roll of paint, and decide where you want your mountain to be. I'm using a lot of pressure, and this is very far away, so we don't actually care for detail. We're just gonna make a nice outside edge. And we'll just blend it, leave it without highlights and shadows, because this is somewhere far away. Gonna clean my knife, and I prefer to take a small brush because it is easier to sneak in here. I'm gonna take the 1-inch brush. I'm gonna pull this downwards and blend it a little bit. As you can see, there is not a lot of paint going on in here, so it's better for us. It will look like the mountain is very far away. And that's easily we have a nice mountain floating in the background. And always remember that the mountains are more distinct on the top than they are in the bottom. Okay. Now I want to come a little bit forward, and I'm gonna mix a new lavender color. We're gonna use a lot of lavender today. So I'm gonna take a little crimson and phthalo blue. I'm gonna take some white too. A little bit more blue for me. And it's up to you to decide what kind of value you want in your colors. You can use different colors than I do. So as you can see, I have a darker value of lavender compared to what I have already on the canvas. Pull the paint nice and flat, cut a little roll of paint, and let's decide where I want my mountain. I want to save some of these nice clouds, so I will come right in here, and I'm gonna make a couple of peaks. It's up to you to decide how big you want your mountain to be. Just a nice outside edge. Scrape off all the excess paint. Maybe there's another one right here. A nice small peak, a baby peak. And we really need to scrape off all the excess paint in order to make the blending easier. I'm gonna take a pinch brush and blend all these. And by the time we have the liquid white on the canvas, it's very easy to blend. If we had a dry surface, we would be in trouble already. And this is where we need the firm paint. The paints we're using are very firm, and it's probably one of the most important things in this technique. Blend this nicely. And that easily we have a nice mountain. I'm gonna fix this one. You know, we always run into trouble and into some mistakes, but there is nothing we can't save. As you can see, I had some streaks in here of paint that I did not like. So what I really want to do is to come back and fix it, and by the time the canvas is wet, it's so easy to do. Really no problem at all. go in here and blend this nice and easily. Now I'm gonna come into highlighting. I want to make something different today. I want to put different layers of highlight paint, on top of each other. So I'm gonna take a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of dark sienna, and a little bit of bright red into this. I'm gonna leave it sort of marbly. There is a lot of rocks on this mountain and the light plays through, so I'm gonna cut off a little roll of paint that has a lot of variation of colors. So I'm gonna come up here and very lightly, using absolutely no pressure, following the angles of the mountain, I'm gonna make these highlights. And these colors are matching the lavender I'm having underneath. Always remember to marble your paint, not over mixing. Using absolutely no pressure at all. And if you're running out of color, you can always make some more. Can you see this? These holes and bumps in here, they're very necessary to be made. A little bit in here too. Now I'm gonna take white paint and go right above, because there is the light coming from here, so I'm gonna take some straight titanium white, and this white will blend with the color that it's underneath. I'm gonna take this little roll of paint, and no pressure once again. Can you see the paint? It's coming alive. It's coming alive on the canvas that easily, and using no pressure at all. No pressure. Just caress the canvas. And this is where we need the firm paint. If the paint wasn't that firm, it wouldn't break, and you wouldn't be able to make these effects. Now, as you have noticed, I have left this peak without highlights because I want to push it very back further. And now for the shadow color, I'm gonna clean this pot. I'm gonna take some white, some Van Dyke brown, and a little bit of phthalo blue. A nice grayish color, a little bit of dark sienna to that. We really need some rocky effect on these mountains. So I'm gonna pull this very flat, a little bit more white probably. Yeah, it's a little bit better for me. A little bit more brown, a little bit dark sienna, whatever you want. And we're pulling very flat, we cut across that roll of paint, and we just make the shadows the same way, always following the highlights, because each highlight needs its distinct shadow. And just take your time to make these. I'm gonna go in here, a little bit more paint, and we're really barely grazing the canvas. Can you see these bumps and stuff? They're only made because we have the firm paint, and we're using absolutely no pressure. We'll go above this peak and go in here too. Not easily. You can make lots and lots of peaks. And probably I want to make a valley in here. So I'm gonna clean this pot. Let's say that I want another valley. I'm gonna take the same colors, the white, the ochre, the red, and the dark sienna. And I've not overmixed, as you can see. Lots and lots of variations of color. Cut off the little roll of paint, and we'll come down here and very lightly add another peak. Very easily. Take some white paint and just go above this and let it blend. And it also pushes the other one a little bit behind. Give it its private shadow. And this is what makes each peak distinct. Okay, now I'm gonna take, I have to find a clean twinge brush. I have all of them dirty. And I'm gonna mist this down a little bit. And I'm tapping with not a lot of pressure. Always following the angle of a mountain. And very gently go above this. And can you see that misty effect we have? We have the dark color in here, the light color. They have not blended. It just shows that there is mist in here that easily. And I'm gonna do the same thing in here too. Just follow the angle of the mountain. And that easily we have a nice mountain that flows around in the sunset. Okay. Now I want to have some land in here. I want different matches of land. So I'm gonna use the same color, the same lavender color. So let's take some lavender in here. Just make it a little bit darker with alizarin crimson and phthalo blue. And these are just brush mixed, as you can see. A little bit more color. And you can also use the palette knife to mix this, but right now I just want to brush mix. I want to show you a different way. And we're just tapping the brush into the color. And let's come in here and let's decide where we want our landmass to be. Just a little bit of color. And this is where you decide the lay of the land, because it's coming through this way. Now I want to reflect this in the water, so I will just take some of this color and reflect it in the water. Something else you can do is, if I use a 1-inch brush, you can lift this upward, and it will be like that thousands and thousands of trees are living on this kind of foothill. But make sure you lift straight upwards. That easily. And I'm making short, straight moves with my brush. Now I have the reflection. Make sure you pull straight downwards and then very lightly go across. Now what I want to do is that I want to make different layers of these. So I'm gonna take the same brush, the same color, just make a little bit more paint. That was too much blue for me. But it's alright, you know, just let things happen when you're painting. So I have more paint now, more darker paint, and I will come just above this one. And can you see that there's difference? I'm coming right above this, and I'm gonna fill this in. This pushes the other one back. Gonna fill this in, reflect it, and very, very gently go across. And I'm gonna lift this paint and make some more trees. I lift straight upwards. And I want to make a final peninsula using more paint. I'm gonna use more of this lavender, a purple color. Just load the brush. And I will come right above here. Just tap downwards, it's very easy. And another reflection. Pull this downwards. And then very lightly go across. So we have different planes going on in here. I'm gonna take at least little amount of liquid white, a little bit of darker color in here, pull this straight on my palette, and I'm just cutting off, and as you can see there is a small roll on the edge of the knife, and I'm gonna do some water lines in here. I'm gonna separate the reflections from the land. And a little bit in here too. And make sure you paint this straight with a knife. It will take you some time. Most of us can't do it even after a lot of practice, but never give up on this, you know. You really never have to give up. If you do not do something well, just keep practicing and the result will come as long as you have faith in yourself. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this by lifting the paint up, and even though there's a curvy piece of land, I always want to pull straight. I don't want them leaning. Alright, and that's all about this side. Now I want to come a little bit forward, and I'm gonna make some trees in here with the round brush. I like the round brush very much. We used it last time, so let's go again with it. Let me clean my mess in here. So let's take some dark sienna, and I'm gonna add the least little amount of Van Dyke brown, and I'm tapping just the corner of the brush. So let's decide what we really want to do in here. I want to have a big tree that comes up in the sky, so we'll start from the bottom. And we'll load the brush as necessary. I'm gonna give this a nod. And as you can see, I'm saving this little pick in here because this is what adds interest to our painting. Another little tree in here. And I'm starting from the bottom and working upwards because there is more sunshine in these trees than there is on the top. There is more sunshine there is more sunshine on top than there is in the bottom. We have lots of shadows in the bottom. Another smaller tree, and you can always vary the color, the shapes. There's another one bigger in here that hides the mountain, and this is where you decide the lay of the land is kind of leaning, and I kind of like it, so it's okay for now because we're gonna come even closer later on. Okay, so I'm gonna take the liner brush and I'm gonna go through the same color. I'm gonna use a lot of paint thinner to thin down the paint. We want an ink consistency in here and a lot of paint. And we come through the paint and we're having a nice sharp point. So I will come in here and put some tree trunks, and you decide how thick or how thin you want them. Put a couple of limbs in here, and always keep the paint thin. And you can have a couple of sticks and twigs roaming around freely on this land. They add some interest in your painting. We can have one in here, just a stick. Then the paint down a little bit more. Gonna add another one in here. Maybe he's having a rough day. He has no limbs left, he has no leaves. Just wherever you want them to be. Now I want to come and highlight this. I want to see some foliage, so I'm gonna take, I have another one of the round brushes, so I'm gonna take just the corner and tap in some cadmium yellow and some salt green. And we load quite paint here. It's a very nice brush to work with. It really makes fantastic effects. So let's start from this tree up here. You know, I want to put the least little amount of paint in there because I want this paint to stick. It's much easier because the thin paint will stick to the thick paint. Okay, so I will come up here and just by using the top corner, I want to have some highlights on this tree. A little bit more in here. And always remember to leave some gaps in between. We don't want a flat tree, we want a lot of depth. And let's go to this one too. And whatever color you like, you play through the yellows, the greens. There's a nice green one. Very nice foliage. And we can also add some bushes in here. A little bit more here and there. I'm gonna add a little touch of bright red. Let's make a bigger one. It has red leaves on it. Another one in here. And I'm actually saving some of the dark color in order to create depth. Another happy bush in here. And I think this is a very fun painting. I really hope you like watching it and probably give it a time, spend some time for yourself to paint it. I want to scratch a couple of sticks and twigs using a clean knife. This adds some more interest. Okay, I'm gonna leave this down. Now I want to come even closer. I want to have a big lake in here. I want to block some color, so I'm gonna use darker colors now. Go into detail with the leaves and the highlights. So let's take the shade round brush. I'm gonna mix up some color. I'm gonna take some of my leftover lavender in here, and I'm gonna take some black, some phthalo blue, Van Dyke brown, a lot of illusion crimson, and I'm actually playing with some of the same colors the greens and the browns, the lavender. And this is a nice dark color to play with. A little bit more crimson for me. Okay. And let's use the round brush to block in the dark color. So let's take and top this nicely. Lots of color. I hope you can see. And let's come here and decide where we want our bushes to be. We're saving some of this from behind. Very nice colors. And I'm going to go all around the lake, tapping firmly. I imagine it is a kind of a roundish lake, so we're gonna make a roundish reflection too. A little bit more paint. And as you can see, I'm saving some of these ripples behind. And you know what, I just want another big tree in here, a big leafy tree like this, but it's just closer to us and I have a big gap on here. So I'm gonna take and decide where I want my tree to be. And I just throw it in. And that easily we have another big tree. And I'm gonna make some of these reflections. It's up to you to decide where you want your lake to be, how it is, what kind of shape you have. A little bit more paint underneath it here. Okay. Fill this in nicely. Okay, now let's make it happen. We're gonna take the twinge brush and let's decide where we want our lake to be. I'm gonna put straight down. Let's say that it is in here. So this is actually going roundish. Always pull straight down. And you can also reflect this big tree into the lake, but I want to push it even further, so I'm gonna have no reflection here. There's gonna be a bush that protects this tree. Now very lightly go across. Okay. And that easily we have a fantastic reflection. You know, sometimes you turn back and you see things, so I think that I want my reflection a little bit larger, so we have the same amount of color in here and the same down here in the water, so I have to go a little bit higher now. Can you see the difference? And you can always come back and fix things. There is nothing you cannot fix. Even though we have blended it already, we can do this one more time. And very easily we have finished our lake. Okay, now I also want to put some evergreens that are gonna add some interest in our painting. Let me mix some more color, the same color we have already. Just a little bit more because we need a lot of paint to make evergreen trees. And it's nice to have lots of aspects going on, but it's up to you to decide. You can leave out the leafy trees, you can add more evergreens, it's really up to you, entirely up to you. So I'll take my favorite number 3 fan brush. I'm gonna go into the dark paint, lots of paint, and let's decide where we want our evergreens to be. You can see a lot of paint going on in here. So let's say that we want an evergreen right in here. Make the center line and then come back with the same brush and using just the corner of the brush and we push more and more as we go downwards. And as you can see, you can really see what's going on behind. This is what really adds depth and distance in the painting. I want a big evergreen in here. So I'm taking the corner of the brush and you can have as many or as few trees you want in your world. It's entirely up to you. I want to have another one in here. And let's use the corner of the brush and lots of paint. It's really, really important to have the right amount of paint. Okay. Another one maybe. Let's have another one in here. Just the corner. And this is good practice. It's entirely up to you what paint, what kind of color you'll use, which brush. Let's make another one. A big, strong evergreen tree. You can also use the 1-inch brush or the 2-inch brush for this. Just use a lot of paint and only the edge will help you make the trees. Let's have a big one in here. Let's decide where we want our tree to be. Now I decided I want to make it a little bit smaller. It just won't look right if I make a huge evergreen and there will be no reflection. Plus, I want to save this nice glow I've made. Okay. And another smaller tree in here. A baby tree. It's not grown up yet, you know. Okay. I'm gonna take my palette knife now, and I'm gonna make some tree trunks. Let's take the same color we did the mountain with, the mountain highlights. Take the least little amount of paint, and let's go up to this mountain. Make a tree trunk. Always by pulling towards ourselves. And this one in here has a small skeleton, you know, is a baby. A little bit more paint in here. Now let's highlight this. I'm gonna take the same brush and I'm gonna go into some cadmium yellow. And I'm gonna take some sub green and a little bit of midnight black probably. I want this to be darker and dirtier, you know. So I'm gonna thin this down a bit in order to stick on my background color, just the least little amount of paint thinner. A couple of drops will do. A bit more of the subgreen. And we have loaded our brush full of paint, so let's go up in here and paint some highlights. And a little bit more on the next one. And this will give you good practice. You can really do whatever you want on this piece of canvas. It's entirely up to you. A little bit more of the highlighting here. And this one too. And the baby one is very small, you can see. It's going to grow up and be like the others. Alright, now let's take the round brush with the light color on. I'm gonna take some cadmium yellow, some sap green, yellow ochre, Indian yellow, whatever you have. And let's push this one back. A little bit more paint. And it's up to you to vary the color and decide the shape of your bushes and trees. And now we've painted this bush and it actually pushes this one back. It's very interesting. Now I have to put a tree trunk on this tree. So I'll take the liner brush, some Van Dyke brown, and let's throw in just a tree trunk. If the paint won't flow, just add some more paint thinner to your brush. A nice tree trunk, you know. Okay. Let's take our round brush and let's highlight this one this time. We'll start from the top. I will start from the top. And we're leaving some dark color in here. We're letting the trunk show through. You have to reflect this one. And play along with the yellows, the greens, the bright red. You can use which one you want. A little bit of reflection. Another happy bush leaf right here. I'm gonna take some bright red, and it really adds some interest. Some sap green. Let's come to this side now. I'm gonna reflect those, and it gives us good practice to learn how to use all the equipment, how to layer the painting, and we're always trying to make one bush at a time. Some more cadmium yellow. I really hope you liked this scene. It gives us lots of new things to play with. Okay, so I have my lake ready. I'm gonna reflect this in the water. So I'm gonna take a dry brush and very lightly graze this to give us the illusion of reflected leaves on the water, very gently. I'm gonna take some Van Dyke brown, gonna load the brush, so I'm gonna load the palette knife, so I'm gonna decide the lay of the land in this one. And by the time it's a little bit roundish, I have to decide how I want to look. Where's the land? Where are the bushes? Where is gonna be the water? A little bit more soil. And in here I'm coming this way. Always load the palette knife as necessary. It will give you good practice with a knife, making the mountains, the land in here. And I really hope you give it a try. It's probably one of my favorite paintings. I love painting sunsets. It's great fun, really. So I'm gonna highlight those. I'm gonna take the same color as the one we put on the mountain, just marbly, leave it marbly. And as you can see, with one stroke I can give this the feeling of rocks and stones. Just barely grazing the canvas. Okay, a little bit more in here. Gonna make the water line. A little bit of the liquid white on. And we really need to make this straight. It's very important to have a straight waterline. And always paint one after another. Just practice it, you know, it's one of the most difficult things that I have encountered in this technique, to make the water line. But it all has to do with practice, really. I'm gonna bring this together. I'm gonna take some of my yellows and greens that I went to paint the bushes with. I'm gonna thin it down a little bit in order to stick above my stones. And this actually brings it all together. The land, the bushes, just here and there, it gives us a nice feeling. And we'll come this way too. And lots of paint. The secret to this is a lot of paint and thin enough to stick, but not thin enough to thin the paint that's underneath. Can you see what makes the difference in this painting? Lots of nice leaves. I'm gonna take a clean knife and I'm gonna scratch here and there some sticks and twigs. This is what adds interest to our painting. Just wherever you want them. And I prefer to scratch the twigs into the dark, because this is where it will show better. it will show like the sticks are actually holding the bushes and the trees. So I think we'll call it finished for today. I really hope you had a good time. We did a lot of different things today. We had the streaky clouds, the faraway mountain, the other mountain, and lots of nice land mashes, the trees and all these. So until next time, happy painting, take care, and I'll see you soon.